Today's episode of the Star Local Media High School Sports Podcast is brought to you by Baylor Scott & White Sports Performance Center, athletes made here. The Sports Performance Center was developed with one goal in mind: to maximize human performance through movement and recovery. Their team of expert performance sports coaches and trainers will guide you to achieve your performance goals. That's the Baylor Scott & White Sports Performance Center, located at the Star in Frisco. This episode is also brought to you by Allen Dental Studio. Located off Bethany Drive in Allen, their office was designed with you, the patient, in mind, which means an excellent and enjoyable experience. From cosmetics to implants, you deserve a perfect smile, and Allen Dental Studio can make that happen. Also, don't want to leave out another longtime friend of the podcast, Texan Senior Residential Care Homes. With locations in Carrollton and Dallas, Texan Senior Residential Care Homes offers an affordable, high-quality alternative to senior living. Call now at 469-400-7650. That's Texan, spelled T-E-X-S-E-N, Texan Senior Residential Care Homes. Welcome to another episode of the Star Local Media High School Sports Podcast. My name is Matt Welch, being joined by Devin Hassan, Kendrick Johnson, Taylor Ragland, and Brian Murphy. Whereas we devoted Monday's podcast to breaking down the high school volleyball playoffs, we are going to now talk a little bit of football because, would you know, gentlemen, it is week 11. We are down to the this is it, final week of the regular season. So all of your district title, playoff, tiebreaker chaos. It is everybody is crunching their numbers and getting their point differentials in order for this week. So let's just kind of devote the podcast to that very subject. So we're going to break down, go district by district, talk about, what is at stake as far as which district championships are still up for grabs, which teams are playing for their playoff livelihood, which teams could be, playing for a spot in the D1 bracket versus the D2 bracket. All sorts of hijinks on the horizon heading into to Thursday and Friday. So let's start we'll start at the 5A level, because if there's been one game this season that this podcast has made me more excited for than anything, I'm not even going to be at this game, but I'm just fascinated to see how it goes. It is over in District 7 5A Division 1, the district championship, which I think since August, you guys have been alluding to the fact that it could very well come down to the finale between McKinney North and Mesquite Poteet, and wouldn't you know, we're here, guys. McKinney North is 5-0, undefeated in first place. Poteet did get tripped up in that weird game against West Mesquite a couple weeks ago, but they did bounce back against John Tyler last week. So the district title is still very much in the picture for the Pirates. They are 4-1 in second place. And then you look elsewhere in the district, because obviously still much more than just that matchup. For Friday, you have John Tyler in third place at 3-2, and then you have a three-way tie for fourth place. We can get to that because, oh boy, that West Mesquite Sherman result certainly raised an eyebrow, Devin. You have West Mesquite, Sherman, and Texas High all tied at 2-3. And wouldn't you know, two of those teams play on Friday. So, all right, so let's get the big one out of the way. So, McKinney North and Mesquite Poteet, the winner gets the district championship. Technically, if Poteet wins, then they can be co-district champions, but, is it,
North want that shirt that's a full district, so they
you want it outright if you're McKinney North.
That never happened in program history.
And also, obviously, this is for just for seeding purposes. Though the winner, if Poteet wins, then they get the top seed heading into the playoffs. North would be the number 2 seed. So we've been building this one for a while, guys. So I'm just going to turn the floor over to y'all and just talk a bit about how you guys are feeling about your respective squads heading into this matchup.
Well, I'll start off with Johnson Damas told y'all back in August.
There's a new name, by the way. What do we come up with Friday night?
Murphstradamus after
the Plano West.
After we called Plano West over Plano East.
I've been having my eye on this game since, as Matt said, since August. But a key thing, and Devin can allude to this, is the way the bracket is. If you go against a Frisco Lone Star or you go against a Highland Park, you want that one shot deal. You don't want to have to see both of them in the same sentiment. So that's how big a deal it is on who wins that game. They can legitimately make a run and go 3 or 4 deep and get some playoff success. Wouldn't it be safe to say whoever wins has a legit chance?
Yeah, I think both teams are capable. I think McKinney North with that offense is capable of beating anybody, even a Lone Star, even a Highland Park, just because
but 40 points just to compete.
They can score at a ridiculous rate. Poteet's a little bit different animal in terms of they don't have the firepower, and they're not going to average 50 points a game, and especially they've been without Seth McGowan, their star running back, for the last 2 games. You saw the impact that had against West Mesquite when they really just shot themselves in the foot time and time again. They committed 15 penalties, and they just happened at the work. They'd have 3rd and 1, and they'd have a false start, or they would have a 25-yard you getting downfield, and they get called for holding. It was just at the most inopportune times, and so you kind of thought, wait, well, maybe they're trending downward a bit, and then they go on the road to Tyler last week and beat John Tyler 37-14, again without Seth McGowan. But the defense did the job. Xavier Jeans, the backup, rushed for over 200
Where did
yards.
he come from?
He's been solid all year long. He just gets overshadowed because he's not getting 25 carries a game. He's getting 8 to 10 carries a game because Seth McGowan's there. And he's a smaller guy, but he runs tough, he runs hard, and obviously he showed what he could do last week. So it really kind of depends. Again, it's really hard for me to peg because if they get into a shootout with McKinney North, they're going to lose. But if that defense can play the way that they played in certain games, they held Tyler Lee to 14 points in a game early, their last non-district game. Again, holding John Tyler to 14 last week. Katan Crawford, who ran all over McKinney North.
Yes and no. First half he had 280.
Did he go over 300 or not? He went over 300 yards on the ground. He ran all over him.
But he had a 20-yard half though.
They had to start throwing in the second half. Anyway, but Poteet held him in check last week to under 100 yards. So if they can get that kind of defensive effort to slow the game down, establish the ground game, chew up clock, and keep McKinney North's offense off the field as much as possible, because I don't think they can stop him. But they just got to keep them off the field as much as possible. Keep that game in the 30s. I know that sounds ridiculous in this, but in this day and age, that's what you need to do. Then I think Poteet can win that game. If they get into a shootout, they don't have the firepower to keep that.
I'm telling you now, if they beat McKinney North, they will have to score over 40 points. Because to beat McKinney North, you're going to have to score 40 points just to compete.
We'll see. That's why I said they got to keep it. That's why I think they got to keep it under 40.
I know a lot of y'all numbers guys. Dylan Markowitz is leading in Class 5A, 3,050 yards, 34 tubs to 3 picks. His top receiver, J.J. Henry, has 1,075 yards. And they have the area's leading 5A leading rusher, Manny Fitcher, 1,462 yards. That's what the numbers say.
Yeah, I can't wait for Lone Star to rock them in the
They're not swarmed. They're going to put up points regardless of who they play. They're going to do what they do, as they like to say.
Do we know, where are we at on Seth McGowan? Can you say, or do you know? I mean, are they being tight-lipped on that one? Or?
Yeah, they're keeping it under wraps. I mean, obviously he was on the sideline 2 weeks ago. He's not winning crutches or anything like that. But they're being pretty tight-lipped about it.
With what Jeans showed last week, I mean, that's obviously very encouraging. But I mean, do they kind of need Seth McGowan if they're going to pull this off? Or
everybody needs their 5-star.
Yeah.
I mean, when you want your best, you got to have your best player when it counts.
I mean, if he's not able to play though, where does your level of, I don't know, I haven't seen your pick for this game, so I don't know where you're leaning technically. But if he doesn't play though, I mean, how does that kind of alter the mathematics of this game?
Well, again, I think it comes out of their defense.
Yeah.
Like I said before, I think they can move the ball, because if there's one thing, McKinney North can score at will, but they don't do a real good job slowing people down either.
They get better though. They're improving.
Yeah, I know. But what I'm saying is that I think the Poteet defense is the key to this game, and like I mentioned before. So even without Seth McGowan, I think Poteet has a very good chance.
Yeah.
I like their coaching staff is. What they did last week against John Tyler was really impressive, especially since I saw the game against West Mesquite, where they didn't look good in that game at all.
Yeah.
But to respond to performance on the road against John Tyler, if they can build off that, I think it's going to be a close game.
Well, for the 4th seed, who's getting that, Devin? You've got West Mesquite, Sherman, and Texas High tied at 2 and 3. Sherman just laid the waste to West Mesquite. I'm not sure what happened there, especially if coming off that win over Poteet.
Yeah,
Wranglers were riding high, and now all of a sudden, I mean, hey, although if you're just going to look at what's what is at stake, I mean, West Mesquite plays Texas High, so those two teams are tied in the standings, so that's an easy way to solve that part. And then Sherman plays John Tyler, so you would think if form holds, then
West and Texarkana game should get in.
Yeah.
Is that Texarkana?
Yes, I think so.
But Sherman kind of came out of nowhere scoring. I mean, they just. We were getting updates. I was watching it on because we can watch the. I was at Memorial, but you can watch the game at Handy. Yeah. And every time I look up, Sherman's in the end zone.
Was it at Sherman?
No, it was in Mesquite.
It was Handy. It was at Handy.
But I mean, they just their offense was just cranking. It's interesting because if John Tyler beats Sherman, then West Mesquite Texas High is a de facto playoff game. Whoever wins that game is in as the 4 seed. If Sherman beats John Tyler, then you have all sorts of tiebreaker things that come into play. West Mesquite would be out regardless because of that game against Sherman. So skewed their point differential that they're out.
Can't be losing by 29 points.
Yeah, if Texas High is involved in that 3-way, I mean, again, John Tyler's in no matter what because they have the point differential advantage. If it's Texas High and Sherman, then Sherman would have to beat John Tyler by 11 points or more to get that spot. Obviously, those aren't teams that concern us, but just for the sake of people knowing how that situation works out. So West Mesquite's got to basically win that game against Texas High and hope that John Tyler is able to take care of Sherman.
And to go back to Poteet and McKinney North, 2 reasons why North will win. Well, 3. They're the better team.
This might be named Game of the Week, Kendrick, so maybe we should save this for later in the week. We don't want to burn all of our energy on it now when it might be named Game of the Week later on Wednesday. All right, so we can talk. All right, let's shift gears. Talk. We'll save the 7-5A Division II headache for a few minutes. Let's quickly talk some 5-5A Division I. So far, what we know, Lone Stars locked in as the number 1 seed. 6-0, first place, just kicking the crap out of everybody. You have a second place tie right now between Independence and the Colony, but in the wake of last week's double overtime thriller, the Knights have the head-to-head over the Colonies, so they're in position to get the number 2 seed if they can take care of business on Friday. And then you have, in fourth place, a tie between Wakeland and Frisco Heritage at 3-3. Wakeland has the head-to-head on Heritage there. And then, I guess, are Little Elm and Centennial mathematically still alive, Brian? Right, because they're 2-4, tied for 6th place. But if you look at the schedule, you don't get any matchups between those teams ranked in the top 4. It's literally those top 4 teams against those bottom 4 teams.
Yeah, and if you look at it, Centennial plays Independence, not favorable for the Titans, and Little Elm plays the Colony, also not favorable for the Lobos. So yeah, we're looking at a Lone Star, Independence, the Colony.
I don't see any of these games that look favorable for either of those bottom 4.
There's like a very, very, very slim chance that it's not one of those 4 teams making the playoffs. So, I mean, Independence, they were down 21-7 in that game, and it was just one heck of a game. And they scored coming out of the half, which was huge, because the Colony was just dominating pretty much the entire first half. And the Independence just never went away. They just never went away, and they took away Kion Wafer, which was interesting because he's got 17 touchdowns on the year, and him and that Braylon Braxton connection has been, the main reason to their success. But, the running game was big with Dwayne Orr, and then Zyleel McMillan, one of the coolest names out of any team I cover. I mean, he just had the game of his life. 3 touchdowns, and I don't know if it was because, Christian Gonzalez was too focused on Kion Wafer, and it kind of opened up some of the field for McMillan. Elijah Arroyo, their tight end, he also had a big game. He had a one-handed catch. I saw one of the Independence coaches tweet out the video of it. I forgot what it said, but something about we only have only one-handed catches for Arroyo or something like that. I forgot what it said. And I didn't even notice it during the game, but when I saw the clip on Twitter, it was pretty cool. And he had a big game also. He had a touchdown, but yeah, that was such a wild game. Going to double overtime. The first 2, the Colony scores in 4 plays in overtime. Independence scores in 4 plays in the first overtime. They both get the extra points blocked, so it goes to the second overtime. And Rudy Rangel told me after the game. So Independence, they got the ball to start the second overtime. They scored, and they kicked the extra point, and then Rudy told me that they were going to go for 2. Well, Mike Arrington throws an interception in the back of the end zone, wins the game. It's only fitting that in a game with 2 of the top offenses, an interception wins it. That's just how it goes, man. But the Colony's going to be fine. Rangel told me they'll be just fine. When you have those guys, you'll be okay heading into the playoffs. And Independence, man, that's up there, man. Biggest win in program history. That's got to be close to number 1
on the short list for sure, man. Yeah, they kind of threw us off the scent there for a couple of weeks with the up and down showings against Wakeland and Little Elm. And
well, they beat Wakeland pretty good. I mean, they were in control. They only won by 10, but they were in control that entire game. That's a good win against Wakeland. But last week, struggling to barely beat Little Elm by 4. It's like, what is this team? And because remember, I wrote that column a month ago talking about how Independence was the second best team, better than the Colony, and then the Colony over the last couple weeks, them almost beating Lone Star and then beating the mess out of Wakeland. It's like, well,
and talked me into taking the Colony in the picket line last week.
We all bought in. We all
picked the Colony, and they were in full control, like I said, but just Independence just stuck around. They made the plays. when they had to, and then double overtime. I mean, I'm not mad at.
Oh yeah, sounds like a great game.
Yeah,
7-5A Division II.
I'm out.
It's going to be fine. It's going to be fine.
All right.
I like how it's clear cut with the matchups this week.
Yeah.
Braswell, Denison, Lovejoy, Frisco.
There's not going to be any crazy ties because the 4th seed, Reedy's probably going to beat Princeton, which would put them at 5-3 to finish.
5-3.
Denison is 5-3 now. No, 5-2.
Yeah.
So if they end up tied, Denison has Braswell. That's pretty simple for the 4 seed. If Denison loses and Reedy wins, they're the number 4 seed.
So to kind of set the stage for what that district looks like right now, we do know that Frisco, Braswell, and Lovejoy are all in the playoffs.
Yep.
Now the seeding can still change. They are all tied at 6-1 right now for first place. So the district championship is we could have 2 teams vying for this.
Any 3 of those teams could be the district champion.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. And two of them play on Friday. So you have those 3 in first place. You have Denison, who we just mentioned. They are in 4th place at 5-2, 1 game ahead of Reedy at 4-3. The 2 matchups to note for this week: Lovejoy versus Frisco. As we just mentioned, they're tied for first place. So the winner of that game is a district champion,
unless Braswell wins.
I mean, they're or whatever, so that's,
Because if Lovejoy beats Frisco and Braswell beats Denison, Braswell has
the winner gets a share. The winner gets a share.
Yeah.
But if Frisco wins, they're the outright district champs.
Yeah, and then Braswell and Denison play as well. So, I don't know, guys. How do you foresee this one shaking out when all's said and done? Who do we foresee being the 4 playoff teams?
The first thing I'll say is that I'm taking Lovejoy this week, and I think that we've underrated them. They've had some weird. It's kind of like Independence. That Lake Dallas game looks terrible. The Collegeville Heritage game to open the season looked terrible. They've had some weird results, but 1, they found a way to win, and 2, against kind of this upper tier, they found a way to beat Reedy, which that was another weird game, but resilience there. That Braswell game it's kind of like calling Independence. What are you going to do? It was triple overtime, 59-51. And Braswell also is ranked much higher in my head right now than originally. I mean, that's a really good football team. So I think Lovejoy's rolling. I think that they've kind of, if it's possible to be a postseason team locked in now and be under the radar, I think they are. Frisco's had some head scratchers too with Denison and a couple other programs. So, it could go either way. Frisco's so good. All 3 of those teams that are in are a coin flip, a score within each other probably. But I think I like the way Lovejoy's been going right now. And we'll see. But I took Lovejoy. I mean, I'll say that now, but I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if any of these scenarios play out.
Here's what I think will happen by Friday night. Frisco's the district champion. Denison loses to Braswell, and Reedy's in because they beat Princeton.
Mm-hmm.
So you would have Frisco, Braswell, Lovejoy, Reedy?
Reedy, yeah.
Wouldn't shock me.
No.
Literally nothing would shock me beyond, I don't know, just some crazy blowouts among those top 3 teams or something like that. Because like I said, the 4 playoff teams are all, there's going to be a great, 5A Division II, or at least a very solid 5A Division II team left out.
A team with 5 district wins isn't going to make the playoffs. That's just not right. But I mean, it's
how many district games do they play?
1 million.
Exactly.
You think they'll be piping in score updates from that Denison game at the Reedy Princeton?
I mean, you have to imagine. You got to make sure not to get snuck up on them by Princeton. Shouldn't, but they've been competitive a couple times. Yeah. That'd be the ultimate way for Reedy to get booted.
All right. Well, yeah, I guess that settles that part of 7-5A Division II. And that's kind of a look at where things are at least as far as our 3 5A districts heading into week 11. Still got plenty more over in 6A to talk about. We can do so after a quick word from this sponsor. Today's podcast is brought to you by Star Local Media. 14 newspapers and websites with a print distribution of 270,000 homes and monthly page views of 600,000 online. Star Local Media, your community voice for news. And now, let's get back to the podcast. And we are back. Just me, Taylor, Brian, and Devin to round out this back half of the podcast as we continue talking about some of the playoff scenarios and tiebreakers and whatnot at the 6A level. We've already talked some 5A, so let's dig into 6A. Let's start with the easy one. District 6A is just about set.
Yep.
You have Marcus in first place at 6-0. They are locked into the top seed in the Division II bracket. Because we're going to be getting into the whole 6A Division I, Division II thing now. So a little bit of definitely some muddy waters to traipse through there as we'll get to later on. Nevertheless, though, yes, behind Marcus, you have Hebron at 5-1 by virtue of Marcus having head-to-head over Hebron. Hebron is locked in as the low seed in Division II as well. And then you have Flower Mound and Lewisville, both of which will go D1. They are technically tied in the standings, 4-2. Hebron, not Hebron, but Flower Mound does have the head-to-head over the Farmers in that instance. They're all playing games that they should theoretically. Actually, I take that back. The Marcus and Lewisville, the Axe game is one where that's a huge rivalry there. So you can never discount theirs. The Marauders look to lock up an undefeated run through district, but nevertheless, though, Flower Mound, because they have the head-to-head, they just need to again just take care of business. Thursday gets Irving Mack, and they are for sure going to be the top seed in Division I for District 6A. So that's kind of where things are at there. Again, the Axe game, we should see what that brings, but as far as its effect on the playoff seeding, it won't. I mean, assuming Flower Mound doesn't get shocked by Irving Mack. So it feels like our top 4 there are just about set in stone. All right. That's out of the way. That's out of the way. Wish I could say the same about these other 3 districts. All right, so let's talk some District 9 6A, because after Friday, man, things got real on Friday. You had Allen, locking up for sure. Allen, getting that district championship. So 14 years in a row. They laid waste to Prosper despite being down their top 2 running backs and one of their top 2 receivers. They beat them 35-7. Allen is the top seed in Division I, as if there was any doubt. They're 6-0. They have a 2-game lead on Jesuit and Prosper, who are still tied for second place because they both lost. Jesuit had a chance to solidify its spot as the number 2 team. Then they had that weird game against McKinney, man. E.J. Smith goes down early on, and then that was the game that I guess officially kind of just triggered this chain reaction of now all of a sudden you have 3 teams vying for the last playoff spot in the district. Allen, Jesuit, Prosper, they're in. They're fine. We still don't entirely know. I guess Allen for sure is D1, obviously. Mm-hmm. That's never going to change. Jesuit is going to be D2. Prosper, though, their standing could fluctuate, depending on whether Plano makes it or one of the McKinney schools make it, because you have Plano, McKinney, and McKinney Boyd. Those 2 McKinney schools, which had kind of been just left for dead a couple weeks ago, they have roared back to life. And wouldn't you know, McKinney has, after an 0-3 start in district, they are now 3-3 and tied with Plano. They're coming off that massive win over Jesuit, 24-21, and then 1 game back is McKinney Boyd, another team that you saw them getting when they lost at the wire to Plano East. It was looking like, okay, that's probably church for McKinney Boyd, and then they go out and they post a 28-0 win over Plano last week, and so you have all 3 teams that are in contention for that last playoff spot. As far as what it means relative to Friday, Plano plays Prosper, and this was a game where with what Plano showed on Friday and just how short-handed they are right now at wide receiver and at tight end for that matter, because it wasn't just not having Nolan Williams and Jaden Chambers, their top 2 wide receivers. Their star tight end Christian Sabatini was also sidelined by an injury, and Coach McCullough told me afterwards that he does not anticipate Sabatini playing against Prosper. Now it sounds like they're going to get Nolan Williams back, so that should help, but they're still going to be minus Chambers, still going to be minus Sabatini. I know the results from Prosper against Allen and Jesuit are probably going to throw some folks off the scent a bit. They did get beat pretty decisively in both those games. Something like, what was it, like 86-21, bad. Something combined. So clear-cut third best team in the district. No shame in that, because when you look at then the total score between them and the other 4 teams in the district, it's silly. How bad they beat the rest of the district by. So if Plano was at full strength, I could maybe talk myself into it being a game, just given what Plano has shown in their ability to mix the pass and the run. But man, without those receivers, they just did not have anything that could stretch the field against Boyd. And again, they get Nolan Williams back, and it's going to help, but I just don't know if it's going to be enough.
It's unfortunate because they have the simplest and cleanest path to the postseason, but that doesn't translate to easiest, obviously. Yeah. And the timing of the injuries is unfortunate, and the final week opponent is also pretty unfortunate. But
and I think coming off, it's what they didn't get beat.
Yeah.
They got
blanked.
Yeah.
I mean,
28-0
to a team that comes in with a losing record.
Yeah.
I mean, you still have Tylen Hines. You still have all the
Yeah,
talent.
that's what I don't
something.
That's what I don't understand. So coming off
But it
that,
basically, like, so again, when you don't have when they
load up.
yeah, that's all they did is just load the box, and Plano could never establish the run. And again, they just so many of those guys, because the beauty of Williams and Chambers and Sabatini is what they do after the catch. They're just incredible playmakers once they get the ball in their hands, and there just was no downfield passing game for Plano. And again, when you chip off that many layers of the depth chart, eventually, and it's going to come back to bite you. Not everybody's Allen.
well, and that's what I'm saying. It is what it is. But the fact is that was just last week.
Oh yeah,
they're not going to be at full strength again. Then I think that final playoff berth is decided to McKinney.
It sounds like that's if you're going to simply just go off of what is most likely to happen. Again, Plano could. Again, who knows? But the odds certainly don't favor. Momentum is certainly not on Plano's side, which, like, when you think of, like, all the praise that offense had got, this was, I mean, on pace to be one of their better offenses since, like, the Rex Burkhead days, and then to get shut out. And granted, like, McKinney Boyd doesn't have a bad defense. Just that's been the story of their season, was the offense just could never sustain drives, so Boyd's defense was getting gassed out late in games. They do have a lot of talent on defense. That's why I was so high on them at the start of the year. When you look at all of the talent that they have in that secondary, and the offense was finally able to string some stuff together, against, and it helped again that Plano wasn't the one that couldn't, do much to sustain drives. I mean, Boyd's, again, if the offense is not, he doesn't go 3 and out every time, can at least just keep the defense, fresh, then Boyd's a frisky team. They're totally capable of winning this game Friday against McKinney. But yeah, it does seem like, based on recent form, and again, like we do this, it's one thing, like, because we were talking about the Colony and Independence, how, like, recent form clearly favor the Colony, and then Independence goes out and beat them. So who knows? But, like, again, you wonder, though, if Plano's going to be able to right the ship in just a short amount of time against Prosper. So yeah, Plano just has to win. That's, again, like, to not belabor the point. Plano has the easiest path because they just need to beat Prosper and they're in, because they have the head-to-head over McKinney. If they lose, though, then yes, the winner of the crosstown showdown, McKinney ISD, gets in. All of a sudden, yes, that game now is, I mean, it's as pivotal and installment in that rivalry as we've seen in quite some time. And it does feel like late in the year that game does have playoff ramifications all of a sudden. It's just crazy how we got to this point.
Yep.
You consider that McKinney, McKinney, after losing that crazy game against Plano, one that required 2 days to complete because of the inclement weather, they dropped to 0-3. They have that game against Plano East where, they very well could have lost that game if the ref throws a flag on a pass interference call in the end zone. And then they play a Jesuit team that felt like it was just a foregone conclusion that Jesuit was going to take care of business. Jesuit loses to the one guy they can't afford to lose in E.J. Smith, and then McKinney's able to just squeak out a 3-point win. And now all of a sudden McKinney is, they went from 0-5 last year to making the playoffs, and now they could very well have a similar late season surge if they can take care of business against Boyd, a Boyd team that, again, like, after that Plano East game, what do we make of Boyd? It's a team that showed some signs of promise early on in the year. There was a lot of this influx of talent, with the arrival of Joe McBride, and now all of a sudden, Boyd might actually follow through on that promise and get into the playoffs. We'll see. But yeah, the stakes just went up massive for District 9 6A. Did not appear. Felt like we had our 4 playoff teams decided just a couple weeks ago, but nope, not at all. And obviously, again, as we've been talking about all season now, the possibility of Plano ISD being collectively shut out of the playoffs, all 3 teams missing for the first time ever, that is very much in play, and probably, if you're just going to weigh the probabilities of it happening,
I would say that's the best.
Seems more likely than not that it's going to happen. We'll see if Plano's got a shocker in store Friday out in Prosper. But
what do y'all think the most realistic thing that happens? Obviously, Plano loses to Prosper.
I think we just go back to what we said when we were when district was about to start and we were making our district predictions. I think we all landed on McKinney being that last playoff team. Obviously it's a weird route to get. It was a strange roadmap, but I think I'd favor McKinney over Boyd. And again, I don't know. If Plano was healthier, I could see him beating Prosper, but given how shorthanded they are on offense, I can't bring myself to do it. So that is at least what it looks like in District 9 6A. Devin, you ready to talk a little 10 6A?
10 6A.
All right, how much of this is certain?
Yeah,
what do we know for
Sachse
sure?
And
Sachse and Wiley are in for sure. Outside of that, it's really kind of clear cut if you think about it. Sachse and Rowlett play this week, and that's been the game of the year in Garland ISD for the last several years. Yeah. It's still a huge game, but everybody's paying attention to Lakeview and Naaman Forest because that's
For good reason.
That's the game that could change everything. Just, I guess, for simplicity's sake, if Rowlett beats Sachse, they're in. If that's the case, then Lakeview and Naaman Forest is for the final playoff berth, whoever wins that game. If Sachse beats Rowlett, which I believe they're favored to do, and Lakeview beats Naaman Forest, Rowlett is still in. And Sachse and Rowlett go Division I, Wiley and Lakeview Division II. If Naaman Forest is able to beat Lakeview and Sachse beats Rowlett, that's when it creates a three-way tie. Well, we've talked all season long about Rowlett, the cardiac kids, and their 1 point and 2 point wins. Well, those don't really play out well in point differential. So Rowlett is already basically eliminated on point differential. So if Naaman Forest, if they lose and Naaman Forest beats Lakeview, they're out, and Naaman Forest and Lakeview are both in. Now, what happens then is they both go Division II. Everybody always assumes that Sachse and Rowlett are going to Division I, but if one of those doesn't make it in, all of a sudden Wiley gets bumped up to Division I. Well, Wiley also beats Sachse. Wiley closes with South Carlin, so they're going to be 6-1. So they're going to finish tied, and all of a sudden Wiley getting bumped up bumps Sachse down to the second seed, and guess what Sachse's reward in the first round is?
Allen!
Yes. So Sachse goes from thinking that they're going to be the top seed in Division I, most likely, if they can beat Rowlett, to all of a sudden facing Allen. And we've called it the avoid Allen.
Yes, I was about to say that.
Sachse and Rowlett play. And it very well may be if Naaman Forest isn't able to win. But yeah, that Lakeview-Naaman game could cause all sorts of chaos with every other team involved. Because Wiley doesn't want to go Division I either. I mean, it doesn't matter the matchups. They've been thinking they were going to go Division II all season long. And so I've seen it on social media. I mean, fans of all these other people are just saying, yeah, we actually are rooting for Lakeview too. So the entire district is rooting for Lakeview. Nothing against Naaman. It's going to screw with everybody else's future plans, whether it be for seeding or for a playoff berth.
One thing, just to quickly bounce back to 9-6A, there was one thing we didn't really talk about, but Prosper's fortunes could very well be hanging in the balance depending on the outcome of this Plano Prosper game, because all along, kind of like you intimated there, like the thought has been, okay, well Prosper's going to go D2, and now it's just a question of, okay, can they avoid being on the same side of the bracket as Longview for the second straight year? But if Plano gets knocked out of the playoffs, Prosper gets bumped up to D1.
What's the best way to avoid Longview?
Don't even play in the same playoff bracket as them. So yeah, that's kind of a weird anecdote for this one, just because Prosper, they're the fifth largest school in that district. So once you get past if Plano ISD is collectively out of the picture, Prosper gets bumped up all of a sudden there, and their playoff landscape could completely change.
Well, and they were saying that Wiley and Prosper could play Division I or Division II based on what happens on Friday. I mean, they could just based on the way it matches up, and it wouldn't surprise me one bit if Naaman Forest won that game on Friday. I mean,
that district's down.
They have just done such a tremendous job as the season's gone on. They played everybody tough. They lost with Rowlett by 1. They were up on Sachse at halftime. I mean, they've played with everybody. And Lakeview's got the best player in the district, which Kamar Wheaton, which he showed last week against Rowlett when Rowlett just had no answers. But I mean, that's going to be a good game out there on Friday night.
All right, let's close out with a look at District 11-6A. It feels like for the most part this thing is settled except for that last playoff spot. Longview, undefeated. They are locked in as the top seed in Division II as they begin their state championship defense. You have Rockwall, which is 5-1 in second place. They are locked in as the top seed in Division I and likely looking at a second round matchup with Allen. Should be awesome. Then you have Mesquite, which is 3-2 in third place. They are locked in as the bottom seed in Division II out of that district. And then it's all going to be Mesquite Horn or Tyler Lee.
Can I ask this question real quick? Does 11-6A have the best team and the best player in 6A?
In 6A? I don't know if I can. I don't know enough about how North Shore has kind of recovered from that loss earlier in the year.
You
But
could make an argument.
That they had the best team, and
I think I'll for sure say best player. Oh yeah, Jackson Smith and Jigba is.
If you just saw his highlights from just last week alone, anytime you make number 2 on SportsCenter's top 10, but he had 3 other plays if you saw him on Twitter that could have, that were almost as good as that. It's insane to watch, and they just, Mesquite put up nearly 600 yards and scored 42 points. In an offense that's really not designed to score that much, and they just had no answer. Rockwall scores 66, but so Division One is set, and it all comes down to Horn and Tyler Lee. That's kind of what we predicted. Horn with a nice bounce back. I mean, North Mesquite, they were gritty the other night.
Yeah.
I mean, Horn, had some struggles, but they were able to take care of business. And again, it sets up a winner take all. They have to go out. They have to go to Rose Stadium in Tyler, and this is a good Tyler Lee team. I mean, they lost to Rockwall 35-32, and Mesquite had to rally from double-digit deficit in the fourth quarter to beat them. They got crushed by Longview last week, but who hasn't Longview crushed? I mean, I talked about Rockwall being unstoppable on offense. Well, Longview beat them 49-3. If that puts it, granted Jackson got hurt early in that game, but still, that Rockwall's got a lot of weapons on that team.
Yeah.
Longview obviously matched is locked into that top spot. Waco, Midway, and Temple will be your Division II representatives in out of 12-6A. So Temple, despite probably having one loss in the regular season, because they lost to Midway 52-28 last week, their reward for a 9-1 season is a trip to Lobo Stadium. So yeah, good for them. As far as Mesquite and Rockwall's immediate future, that's kind of up in the air. Shoemaker's in. Harker Heights is in effect. Belton and Harker Heights are kind of battling for that final spot. Belton lost to a winless Waco team last week, which was, I don't know, kind of out there. But they're all going Division One. But that means Mesquite's gonna have to travel.
Okay.
And it's one thing if you're playing 10-6A, 9-6A, and you're having to go with cross town or one town over. Mesquite's probably looking at going to Belton or Killeen in that first round, which it's a different deal, especially for the first round of the playoffs. But Mesquite in, Horn, it's in their hands. That's all they can ask for.
Where do you lean right now on that one?
Wow, Tyler Lee's been tough all year long, but again, that's not a team that we get to see on a consistent basis. I like the way the Horn defense played in the second half. They're missing a couple playmakers on offense with injuries. I don't know if they're going to be back Friday or not. They just kind of seemed out of sync on offense for a lot of the day. Ben Wyatt had a great game. He scored 4 touchdowns. But
Parks and Rec fame.
But Davizea Gabriel, their quarterback, he set up all those touchdown runs with long scrambles. I mean, he rushed for 160 yards essentially in the first half, but he got hurt early in the third quarter and didn't play the rest of the game. And so after the game, they was like, well, we got to evaluate him and see what happens. He was walking, but you never know the extent until they actually get tested. So him being available is going to make a huge difference because Braylon Monroe, who came in as a backup, he's a good athlete, good baseball player, and I don't know if he has that same kind of running ability as Gabriel. So that's going to be a huge factor in terms of how that game goes.
Okay. We'll see how it all shakes out. Let's see. All right, that is a look at Class 6A. What is at stake heading into the final week of the regular season? Obviously, plenty of exciting stuff on the docket. Ditto for our Game of the Week poll. It was pretty easy to pick our 5 marquee games of the week, and it's a heck of a poll. I mean, so make sure you swing by the website, startlocalmedia.com, vote on which one is the biggest, and we will preview that game and some other big-time matchups on Thursday. That'll do it, folks, for this episode of the Star Local Media High School Sports Podcast. Appreciate everybody for tagging along. Folks, you keep enjoying your week, and we will talk to y'all later.